You're watching Parker Success Academy with Dr. William E. Morgan.
Hello, I'm Dr. William E. Morgan, and this is Parker Success Academy, where we explore models of business success in chiropractic practices. And today I have a very special guest, Dr. Kevin Rindal. Kevin, welcome to Parker Success Academy.
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure. Thanks so much.
So, you and I have known each other for years. I think the first time we interacted, you contacted me about an article I'd written while I was still at Bethesda Naval Hospital, and you were practicing in Bethesda at that time.
Yeah.
And but you've had quite a journey, and you and I have parted ways and come back together. We had business dealings together. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your practice and what you've attained thus far in life?
Yeah, of course. So I was fortunate enough to actually grow up in a chiropractic family. My dad is a chiropractor for 42 years. I have an uncle who's getting close to 48 years, a cousin, two brothers. And so chiropractic has just been an integral part of my life. And through that, I practiced for 15 years, 2 years in the Washington, D.C. area. And that's when we first connected. And then I practiced with my dad for about 3 years. And then I opened up a practice in Seattle in the University District for about 10 years. And during that time, I really focused a lot on rehabilitation, soft tissue, sports chiropractic, and had pretty cool opportunities to work with the United States Olympic swim team for 10 years. I traveled all around with them. And then in the last 4 years, I've actually started another company called Vamosity, where we work with primarily utility construction and manufacturing companies to help their workforce prevent injuries. It was something that just kind of naturally grew from relationships from people I worked with in my practice. And so just expands the ability to reach people with the message of health and wellness and movement health.
When we first connected, I expected us to have a lot more conversations about you taking care of Michael Phelps and the U.S. Olympic swim team. But yeah, it's really branched out far from that. Now, you've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. So I've met you, and you and I had dealings with an online continuing education company that we worked with and created, and I would recruit. And of course, we have actually a very good company. But then you've also had your practice and treating athletes. You're an athlete yourself, a triathlete. And so getting with the swim team, why don't we do this is, before we get into those steps in your life, the progression from practice to the most elite athlete in the world, arguably, to where you're at now. What's a fun fact about you? Something most people wouldn't know.
Yeah. I actually really enjoy cooking. A lot of people, I think, probably don't know that, but I'm a big fisherman, so I love smoking salmon, barbecuing. I brew my own kombucha, make my own sauerkraut. I love that type of stuff, things that like nurture the body, and doing it myself. So that's been something that's always kind of been a fun hobby of mine.
Well, plus you're up in Seattle where you can get a lot of fresh fish.
So, exactly. Yeah.
And you also been a triathlete, bicyclist. So kind of explain your business model now. I mean, maybe take us through the progression from private practice to how did you become the chiropractor to taking care of these Olympic athletes, and then to the business you're in now. Yeah,
I remember in 1984, I was 5 years old watching Carl Lewis in the Olympics, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is the most inspiring moment I've ever seen. And I didn't really know much about Olympics growing up, but I played a lot of sports. And then as I started to getting into that Olympic movement, I was like, man, this group of people, they're just incredible, and they have such passion and work ethic. As you mentioned, I did a lot of competing as a triathlete myself. Ironically, swimming was my weakest link, but I had the opportunity in 2009 to start working with the U.S. swim team just at the junior level, and some opportunities came up, and it was just kind of one opportunity after the next. And so from 2012 through 2016, I worked with the national team and the two Olympic teams. And so it was just a tremendous experience to be able to, fine tune people's bodies, help them achieve their highest level of potential. And before this call, we talked about I've always grown up with a lot of purpose, and really I see my purpose in this lifetime to help as many people achieve the highest level of success and be the best version of themselves, and through movement health. And so in 2016, I was working with some of the executives at a utility company that is based out of Seattle area. And they approached me, and they knew that I was doing a lot of work with the swim team. And a lot of that work was actually on developing preventative models for overuse and musculoskeletal injuries. And so we decided to put together a pilot program with about 1,000 other workers. And it was a tremendous success. They saved hundreds of thousands of dollars, saw a huge reduction in injuries. And I just saw it as it was kind of this aha moment where I was like, oh my goodness, I have the potential here now to like exponentially increase that reach and the number of people that we can influence through this program. And so over those next 3 years, I kind of juggled seeing patients full time and, having the startup company. And towards the end of 2018, it became really evident that we needed to move full time into this. And so I sold my practice, continued to see patients for about another year, and then transitioned out at the end of 2019. And so it was probably one of the hardest things I've actually done is transition out of patient care. But now we're working with tens of thousands of people across the United States and having a huge impact. So I'm really excited about what we're able to do and how we were able to pivot that.
Wow, it's for me, leaving patient care, because I was in patient care for 33 years. So, but we talked about before this call is when you're treating people, you can affect tens of thousands of people's lives. Yeah. Of course, you're as a chiropractor, but where I'm at now, where you're at now, you can actually affect millions of lives. So hopefully my goal here is to make the best chiropractors in the world that'll go out equipped to adjust the world and to make a difference for good. Now, when you're talking about the swim team, one of the things, and we've talked about this, one of my favorite pictures, and we'll hopefully try to find this picture and put it in post-production. It's a picture of Michael Phelps carrying the flag into the Olympic Stadium, leading the procession, and right behind him is you. Right behind the head.
What's so funny is it was funny how it all came together, because I've worked with Michael for a long time, and he's someone that we've had mutual respect for each other. But on that night, he was the flag bearer for the U.S. Olympic team. And so we're getting ready, and I tend to kind of like to stand back. I'm not a front and center type of person, but we were waiting in line, because it's about 4 hours of waiting in line before you even get out there to go into the stadium. And literally hundreds of athletes are coming up to him nonstop, and they're like, hey, can we get an autograph and stuff like that? And so he leans over to me and he's like, hey, Kevin, can you do me a huge favor? He's like, can you help like be my bodyguard tonight? And just like, if people ask like for autographs and stuff, he's like, I just need someone to help me. He's like, I got to focus on, I've got big races tomorrow. I'm like, you bet. And that's kind of how we always operated, is like, we just helped each other out wherever needed. And so anyhow, I ended up kind of being Michael Phelps' bodyguard that night and wearing a different hat. And then I didn't realize that meant also like being on every camera and front page of New York Times and stuff like that. And my parents and family back home, my wife and kids, are like, oh my goodness, what's dad doing in the front? So I felt a little out of place. I mean, not being an athlete, but it was a pretty cool opportunity. So, yeah.
Well, being Michael Phelps' wingman counts for something.
Yeah, no, I'll take a little bit of that. But yeah, it was a neat experience.
So we have a lot of things we usually talk about about a practice, and that you're not in practice anymore. I might just still go talk about your history as a practice, because what you did before brought the attention of corporate America to you. Somehow you got their attention where they wanted what you had. So you're a chiropractor, your dad's a chiropractor, your uncle's a chiropractor, you grew up with adjustments. In addition to chiropractic, is there anything else that you had in your practice or that you added that was a value added?
We had a multidisciplinary practice. So we had acupuncture, we had massage, we had athletic trainers, we had, a gym and basically a facility for strength and rehab. And I have personally a really strong background in soft tissue rehabilitation. So I focused a lot of my attention on that. But that chiropractic adjustment was such a key part of the puzzle. I mean, you can't deny that. And I grew up with, a dad, uncle, and family where that was just such a key component to, my own athletic success. And just, I couldn't walk through a grocery store growing up without people walking up to me and saying, I'd be in a wheelchair if it wasn't for your dad. And so it's just like, I just had that fortune. But I think when you have, all those different tools in your tool belt and you're focused on helping people get better. My mantra was, my goal is not to see you. I'm going to be most successful. You're going to be most successful if we work together to give you a plan that's going to be comprehensive, help your body function at its highest level, give you tools so that you can prevent things from developing into something bigger. And then I'm always here to help you along the way. And we created just a very loyal patient base who knew that we were doing everything we could to help them, be their best and perform at their best. And we were in their back pocket whenever they really needed us. And, that type of model really sells itself. And I think it resonated with the executives at the utility company, because they're like, man, we want to get on this preventative side of the coin, because everything in their world is reactive. They're always, reacting to things, injuries once they've occurred. And they're like, we need this preventative stuff in our program. And the thing that I didn't mention is we've basically turned into a technology company. So we have a really well-developed app and web portal with education. And I just really felt like a key component to this was educating people on how their body works and then what they could do to play an active role in preventing those injuries. And that education is key. And it was always key in our practice from day one of helping people understand how their body works, because then they're way more apt to do their exercises. They're way more apt to, play that active role. So the foundation as a chiropractor, I think it's the language of prevention. It's the model of wholeness, and I just really positioned us well for something like this.
The model of wholeness. We're chiropractic. Our goal, of course, is always to remove the barrier to good health. That's our philosophy. We let the body heal itself, but also if the patient knows that they're the center of their importance, that's what you're focused on, is what's best for them, rather than whatever my treatment plan is or my model of care is. They're what we're about. So
exactly.
What's your personal definition of success?
My personal definition of success is, I think it's being true to what your mission is and your identity as a human being and what your purpose is on this earth. And like, I don't care where people are at, they're successful if they're living along those lines and they're, treating others with respect as they would themselves. There's so many things about that, and success looks different, in terms of what that outcome is. But I think every single person can achieve success from that perspective. I do want to touch on a point that that you made, just in terms of like the body healing itself, because one of the things that I think was really tempting to fall into when you're working with elite athletes is thinking that you are the key to their success. And it's a bad path to go down, because really you're just helping facilitate the body to be able to heal and recover so that it can do what it needs to do. And those people have put in so much time and effort and training to get to where they are. And so I just see us as partners of success when it comes to that, as opposed to like being a root of their success. And when you, I think, approach it from that perspective, you just develop such a stronger relationship with the people that you're working with, and it really keeps you centered on what the purpose is.
Well, you're an athlete, and I've been in athletics throughout your life, and the idea is, your body wants to get better, and somebody who can just help uncover that restriction, whatever that barrier is, to get to the next level. And athletes know, they trust their body. They know they don't want drugs, they don't want surgery. They want you to remove the barrier to their good health almost without question. That's one of the things I found in athletes.
And that was I feel so fortunate, though, to be involved with Olympic athletics when I was. Dr. Moreau and many of the people who really helped chiropractic play a major role in Olympic athletics during that time. It was, the athletes wanted chiropractors. The reason why I had that opportunity is because, athletes before I even was in the system had experienced chiropractic care, and they're like, this has to be a part of us. When we travel to an international meet, we have to have a chiropractor with us. They need to be a part of that team. And it was really neat to see that firsthand, because all politics went out the window, and it was an athlete-driven decision, because they knew that it was such a critical piece to the equation in their success. So
well, I agree. When I took care of Naval Academy football, that it was all the athletes want to be adjusted. I would adjust the team before games. Midweek we would adjust spinal adjustments, a lot of extremity adjustments. That was quite a bit with feet as well. So shifting gears, what's a book that I know you're a big reader. What's a book that you would recommend to our audience?
Yeah, Dr. Morgan, I know that you at Parker have had Jocko Willink, be a part of Parker and some of the different events, but his books have been really helpful for me. So the Dichotomy of Leadership, Extreme Ownership, those have all been really helpful books. I think especially helping me just change my mindset in terms of leading our current team, and everything basically rises or falls based on leadership and your willingness to take ownership of that. So,
and authentic leadership basically means it's your life is your fault. Your kids are your fault. If your kids are rotten, it's probably your fault. And if things are falling apart in your life, it's your or doing great. It's authentic ownership, and leadership is taking responsibility for your realm of influence.
Yeah.
So you and I have had in our business dealings a time where we had little disappointments, but what's the worst moment you've had in your career? A low point.
Oh man. A low point, that's a tough one, but I would say that honestly, 2019 was a really tough year for me, because I was transitioning out of practice, and I was really having a tough time letting go of seeing patients, but also realizing that, I wasn't serving my team well with Vamosity, because, they needed me around, and I'd, be gone for a full day seeing patients. And so I had a lot of struggles, and I really felt like I wasn't doing my best in either realm. And it really helped me. I think that period was like, man, I really there's something about focus that is so important. And so I think I walked away from 2019 realizing that focus is incredibly important, and it's something that you can control and you can, affect. But I wouldn't say it was my worst moment, but it was definitely a huge learning moment. And so.
Sounds like that was your pivotal moment in your journey. I remember the movie City Slickers, where Jack Palance comes up and says, "It's the one thing. That's what the most important thing in life is, one thing." But you have to decide what that one thing is. Yep. So you cannot have multiple most important things. There can only be one primary mission in your life. So,
yeah, well said.
So what advice would you give a younger version of yourself, maybe as you graduate from college? Because we have a lot of Parker students that will be watching this show. What advice would you share with a young Dr. Rindal?
Young Dr. Rindal, again, I would say, understand what your purpose is and your identity. I've said that probably 3 times in this conversation, but I think that, again, that is the core of where everything comes from. And when you have that identified, then you start to make decisions that are in line with what your core values are and what your mission is. And it directs you, and then you think differently. Like I said, I've always been purpose driven. And so when I was first in practice, straight out of school, before I even graduated from school, I remember I was taking seminars every single weekend on sports chiropractic, because I'm like, I want to go to the Olympics someday. I'm definitely not good enough to be an athlete, but if I could somehow have the opportunity to do that. And so I did have a pretty single focus on doing that. And it took, 12 years to actually get to that point. But I would say, if you're a young grad, find out what your identity is, what your mission is, and then set those goals and reach for it.
Having a purpose-driven life. When I graduated, I had already had a significant amount of my time put in the military and became a chiropractor. And I wanted to be the first chiropractor in the military. That was my singular focus. And so with it, I remember when I was in the reserves, I remember down at Special Warfare Center in Coronado, And the medical doctors, I was a chiropractor at this point, but I was a reservist, and the docs let me start adjusting some of the seals down there. And when the word got out, they were lining out past the door, and the docs were there like they didn't realize that virtually all these guys were going out in town spending money out of their own pocket to get adjusted, and they weren't telling the medical doctors. But eventually, as you know, I became a chiropractor in the military for 20 years, and a civilian didn't make my goal, but it was as far, I think, as most people would go. But having a defined purpose that this is where I want to go. And if you don't know where you're going, how do you know when you get there, rather?
Exactly. And, that experience of working with the Olympic team is really what presented the opportunity for me to then meet with the executives and come up with a solution for them. And, you start to see how all this stuff lines up. And that was a huge selling point to them. I mean, they really respected that experience, and it opened up new doors. And so I think it just goes to show you don't know what the end result is going to look like, but when you're really focused on that, it's a fun journey.
Well, you fulfilled your dream, and then you springboarded to the next level of something you didn't even dream about.
Yeah, would have never thought I'd be doing what I'm doing now, but I love it.
So chiropractic marketing and advertising to patients has been a big topic. What tips would you give based upon your history and practice for marketing?
Yeah, for marketing, we didn't do much at all in terms of like sales and marketing. I just built really good relationships with people and built trust. I mean, at that point, I did a lot of triathlon, so I would, found a couple of triathlon and running groups, and so I became a part of those. And I'd offer like free lectures where I could just teach people about like recovery best practices. And so I just started to like build out those networks, and especially when it's a group that is very specialized and it's something that I enjoyed. It was easy for me to be a part of that because I could get my workout and my marketing in at the same time. But through those channels, I mean, that completely built up our practice. We, at a certain point, we're seeing a lot of runners, triathletes, swimmers, and so it was very word of mouth. We didn't do as much of the digital stuff, but again, that was kind of pre-Facebook and stuff like that. So,
well, certainly if you're getting people better, word gets out. If you're not getting people better, word gets out. So being a good adjuster, mastering the craft, I'd say that's probably the most important thing. And then for me, from what I was in practice, is giving to your community. It will give back to you. If you love your community and try to help your community, it will reciprocate and you'll grow. But also give good care and love your patients.
Exactly. It's the best formula. I mean, being good, there's no substitute, and we all have the power to improve our skills for sure.
So what keeps you up at night?
Oh man, what keeps me up at night? I would say, I've always been such a hands-on person and relationship driven. And so, like I said, as we scale our company, we're very digitally focused. And so we have the app, we have the technology, and we've gone from like in-person workshops to like all online lectures and video-based learning. And so what keeps me up is how do we keep that engagement high and, make sure that we're being impactful as we scale. It's a really tough formula to achieve, but we really, again, try to give people that purpose. What we found is that when people start thinking about why they want to take care of their bodies, first, they have to realize that they're worth taking care of. Number two, they need to understand that when they are able to move and they're not living in pain, they're more present. They can be the best version of themselves. It changes their relationship with their families. It changes their relationship with their coworkers and allows them to do things that they want to do, 5, 10, 20 years down the road. And if we have that long-term viewpoint and we start to define what it is that's motivating us to take care of our bodies, that's where you start to get that engagement. And so even if from a chiropractic standpoint, every new patient exam, like I would make the patient actually write down why they were coming in. What was their reason for coming in? Or what do you want to accomplish? What are your goals? And how is you feeling better going to like help you be able to live a better life? Because if that person doesn't have that defined, they're just coming in and treating pain, and you're never going to
if they're coming in to passive care, you're never going to get there. Also, I always treated every new patient as this is a lifetime patient. I want this patient for the next 45 years. So that initial examination was not about whatever their issue was. It was about educating them and winning them over that I'm going to be their chiropractor for the next 45 years.
Exactly.
Now, we at Parker frequently talk about the 10X concept.
Yeah.
What is something that you did in your business that had a 10 times return on the investment or effort?
So the 10X, again, I think that for me, it was incorporating the soft tissue work into my practice when I was seeing patients, because, this is like early 2000s when I was doing that, and it was still relatively new. That's when Graston, ART, some of those other techniques were, kind of emerging as something that athletes wanted. And so, and I realized that that's become a pretty standard procedure at this point. But that was something in the early stages where I was like, you know what? I 100% believe in the power of the adjustment. I believe in, extremity adjusting is such a critical thing. So I really tried to say, what can I do to make myself stand out? And so it was like acquiring skills that complement the adjustment and complement some of those core components. And I mean, literally the soft tissue work got me into athletics, and then the athletics, started to spread word, and pretty soon, our practice, we didn't really even spend any time marketing, just because it became all word of mouth. And so I would say that learning those core skills, really, we definitely got a 10X return on that.
Nice. I remember I was in triathlons when they first came out. In fact, I remember doing Alcatraz triathlon when they didn't allow you to wear a wetsuit. If you wore a wetsuit,
you'd be so cold.
Oh yeah, you'd be DQ'd. So I'm a bigger guy, so it kind of helped me. But I remember for some reason ART took off with triathlon. Well, it's because Dr. Leahy had it at the championships at the Ironman. So it was pretty key. It was pretty strategic for Dr. Leahy's for him to be the person who at these events. So to get your certification, I think you actually had to go to an Ironman and treat athletes. So he made his devotees become his marketing arm too. So that was pretty clever. So
for sure.
So where do you see chiropractic going in the next 5 years?
What I'm seeing is really solid chiropractors coming out. I'm seeing that the population is seeing chiropractors in a totally different light compared to when I was growing up. I mean, I grew up in the 80s when chiropractic was still a little bit fringe, and there's all the AMA stuff going on. And I've just seen chiropractic become so much more mainstream, and especially in the athletic world. I think that, tying yourself to the athletic world is a great way to set yourself apart. I believe the chiropractic profession is going to continue to grow, but we need to continue to increase our standards. We need to continue to increase our knowledge. And I think that that's a really critical piece. Chiropractic does need to say, we're going to get the best people out there to join this profession, and we're going to increase the requirements and the standards so that we can make sure that we're putting the best people out there. And I think everybody wins when that happens.
Well, we've increased our standards at Parker University and have grown every year that we've done that. So I agree with that. And also that we need to be authentic with, you're defined by what you do, but also what you don't do, what you are, but what you don't do. That we do this, but we don't prescribe drugs. And also for our research, and here's what's crazy is if you cite the research, you don't oversight it. That if you want to be trustworthy out there, that can you help this? Well, there's no real evidence that can help, but we can do a trial of treatment to see if it helps. Yeah. And if you're authentic with people, they'll give you that trial of treatment.
I think one of the other ways that we grew our practice is I would meet with medical doctors all the time, and I would explain to them what our approach was and how we did it. And it's probably our best referral sources to this day were actually medical practices who said, you know what, we can't help everything, and this is probably one of your best alternatives. And that was such a huge channel. And you know what it did is it created such a positive relationship between chiropractic and the medical field, just by fostering those relationships. So like you said, not overstating the research, but also being knowledgeable enough to be able to educate people in other professions, where chiropractic plays a really strong role and how collaboration can really enhance the patient experience. And so I think that you're right on track with that.
Well, if you're humble enough to say, we don't know, but we can try. And frankly, if all we did was things that were empirically proven, that we had absolute evidence for, there'd be no surgery, no physical therapy, no drugs, no chiropractic. It's all an art. So when people get upset about, you shouldn't tell people we don't have evidence for that. It's like, it's being authentic. We don't have the evidence yet. We're going to continue to research. So we find things, research comes out, and we don't always find things the way we want them to turn out. We are going to keep searching, but we also want to be explorers for the benefit of our patients, our students, and society. And even if the evidence doesn't go your way, if you're trustworthy, people will give you a shot. So as we draw to an end, what's one takeaway that you'd like to leave with the audience? And if you feel comfortable, would you like to leave some your contact information so people could contact you with any questions they may have?
Yeah, and I'd 100% be happy to leave my contact information. I feel like I was given such a tremendous privilege to, like I said, to grow up in a chiropractic family, and not everyone, has had the opportunity to see that. And what I've seen, especially in the older generation, I mean, my dad was and still is one of the boldest chiropractors I know. I mean, and I think that his boldness, but also, understanding his limitations has allowed him to help so many people that never would have received help otherwise. And so I'd love to, be a resource, especially for young chiropractors who are, looking and just trying to find answers of how they can enter the market, how they can enter the field and grow. And not that I have all the answers, but I was fortunate to kind of grow up with this. And so, I would love to be a resource. And I would say, if I left people with one thing, it's define your purpose and why you're doing this. And like you said, be authentic and focus on just being a facilitator of helping the body do what it does best, which is heal itself. So thanks.
Awesome. So contact information?
Yeah. So Kevin@Vamosity.com. So VIMOCITY.com.
Well, Dr. Rindal, thank you for joining us at the Parker Success Academy. And thank you to our home audience. Can't wait to see you next time.
Thanks for watching another episode of Parker Success Academy with Dr. William E. Morgan.